Have you ever seen a 2-year-old watermelon? Well, come watch me today as I turn this 2-year-old watermelon into some delicious jam. Let's go. Good afternoon and welcome to Willow's Green Permaculture. Today I'm going to be preparing a jam with this. This is a jam watermelon or citron watermelon. One way or another, it's a watermelon. And I harvested it 2 years and 1 month ago. On September 19th, I believe it was, or the 20th of 2022. And today is October 15th, 2024. That day I harvested about 48 of these. And in our first year, we used about 24 of them, half of them. Gave a bunch of them away and used some in workshops. And we have 2 left. This one and this one right here. And this is why I'm doing this video today, because this one started to have some spots on the skin. And so I thought, no, I don't want to waste this. I want to use it. And as you can see, there are no issues inside. Just a couple little spots here and there. Over 2 years. Now, here's one that I harvested a month ago and that I didn't even plant. I haven't planted these in 2 years, but I've gotten harvests for 2 years because the seeds are really, really strong. These are red seeds. Some people grow these just to get the seeds because they're really healthy. So yeah, I harvested this about a month ago. It's still very green, although you can use it too. And in fact, this is a lot juicier when it's fresh like this, but it's a little harder to cut through and it's a little bit more of a process getting the seeds out. Now this flesh is so soft and not quite as juicy, so the seeds are going to be really easy to get out. Now here's one that I harvested in November of 2023, so just under a year ago. And once again, I didn't plant them last year, but I got a bunch because they have so many seeds, and the seeds survive and they regrow. So this I probably can have for another year, and this I can have for another 2. Although I didn't get 48 of them this year because I didn't plant them. So it's this one I'm going to be making jam out of. And what's great about this, and what's great about the fact that they last so long, 2 years, a fruit that lasts on the counter for 2 years. I like to call it a winter watermelon, sort of like a winter squash, you know, how they can last a year, sometimes more. A winter watermelon. But what's great about this is, like the quince in the video about quince that I published about a month ago, this is another fruit that you can grow to grow your own pectin. And so this is going to help us to make jams, make them nice and thick and so on, with a wonderful texture, without having to buy any pectin and without having to use, let's say, as much sugar. So I've got here a jar of ½ liter of grape juice from the grapes in our orchard. So we pressed the grapes, we got the juice, and with sugar, citron melon, and grape juice, and that is going to make a nice thick grape jam. Here's a jar of one that I made about a week and a half ago, I think it was. Look at that. Not even coming out. This is grape jam. Say the same grapes, and required very little sugar and not much cooking either. Normally you have to boil it and boil it and boil it to get it this thick, but not much cooking and not much sugar to make a really good jam. So it's really fantastic. It reduces your amount of sugar. Well, I guess you'll be the judge of that when you see how much I use for the amount of fruit that I use. But it's really, really great because pectin, I find, is it's not cheap. But it's something that's readily available in so many fruits, and it's just a question of knowing. I'd rather not buy it. I'd rather make it myself. Plus, watermelon is really a really healthy fruit, so you get all the goodness of the watermelon as well into your jam, which is really nice. Now, these citron melons, or jam watermelons as they're called, you don't eat them raw. They're very bland tasting. There's something about them that they can last for a long time, and which is really great. So if you're using it for your pectin, so you just keep it on the shelf, you keep it in your storage for as long as until you need it. when you have a harvest of fruit, or when you're ready to make some kind of jam, well, there it is, ready and waiting for you. So like I said, after 2 years and 1 month, I'm cutting this one up, and we're gonna see how it goes. I've got my my scale here because I'm gonna measure the weight of the fruit so that I know how much sugar that I need. Even now, after 2 years, it's a bit of it. It's like cutting through a fresh watermelon, but when it's still green, it's a lot harder. So there we have it. There's the inside. All those beautiful red seeds. I'm going to be definitely collecting these seeds because, you know, a watermelon that lasts 2 years and a month. Because not all of them lasted. A couple of them I had to cut open almost a year ago. So now to get the seeds out, I try and knock a bunch of them out. But what I'm going to do, you have to cut this into relatively small pieces. So what I do is cut a thin slice. And then the seeds are easy enough to get out. Now in a minute I'm going to just turn off the camera because you don't have to watch this whole process. I'm not going to bother filming it and speeding it up because it's just going to waste a whole bunch of energy and camera memory. But I'm going to show you what I do here. So I slice it, cut off the skin. Okay. Take the seeds out. This is the longest part of the process, is cutting it up and taking the seeds out. But like I said, because it's 2 years old, it's a lot softer than when it was still green. By the way, I'm wearing this. This is an outfit I wore during the Omikoshi festival. It's a harvest festival this was in Takasago, Japan, when I was living there 31 years ago. I still have it, and because it's around now, I thought, oh, I'm gonna wear that. There we go. That's what we have so far. So small pieces, you know, in cubes or whatever. And the reason for that, you'll see later, it's because it's just to increase the surface area of the fruit for the second step. Another step I don't want to forget to tell you about, I'm going to be collecting all the fruit into this bowl, and I'm going to want to measure the weight of the fruit. And so that's why I've got my kitchen scale here. So I'm just going to put this fruit in here. If I still see a couple of straggler seeds, I'll take them off. Now the seeds are edible, so I could leave them in there, and I have that other jam. There were lots of seeds in the jam. It just changes the texture, obviously. And actually watermelon seeds are very good for you. Now this citron melon is something that was very, very common in the 19th century, even here. If any of you have some older relatives, maybe they might have some experience with it. Now one thing to remember, so that to make it easier to get the seeds out, I slice it thinly. You see, that way it's going to be easy to get all those seeds out. And you want the pieces to be small, about, you know, cubes that are maybe a couple centimeters on each side, or an inch on each side approximately. And you'll see why when I'm all done cutting up. I still have to research what people actually, apart from keeping the seeds to grow with, I have read that they're used for food as well. I don't know the details of that. You know, that's one of the elements of this life. You know, I had mentioned that this citron melon looked like it wasn't going to last too much longer. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make jam out of this, and I'm going to do the video. I might have been able to wait another like month or two to do this video and to make this jam, because really jam making is something more we do more in the winter time, when there's less gardening to do, less work outside to do. You know, the fruit's all sort of either frozen or ready and waiting for us to make jam with, and so on. And we do it when we have more time in the winter time. And also makes more sense to do something like jam in the dead of winter, because it's cold outside and you're spending your days indoors making your jam, and plus the heat that you're generating from your jam making in the kitchen, well, that's going to contribute to heating the house as well. And so it makes a lot more sense to make your jam in the wintertime. And so once again, sometimes our activities are determined by the stuff that we're growing and whether it's ready, whether it needs to be cooked and so on, whether it needs to be used. It does require a certain amount of organization on Maghalie's part and my own, and coordination between the two of us. And so we try and simplify things as much as we can. Here we go. That's what it looks like. I'm going to be measuring that in a minute. There are all the seeds. The bowl weighs 447 grams. Just over a pound of sugar is what I need for that much fruit. 2 cups of sugar for 2 3/4 pounds of fruit. Now here's the interesting part. Take this fruit and I'm just going to mix the sugar directly into the fruit. And this is the magic. Take the sugar, pour it onto the fruit. Make sure you got a big enough bowl so that you can mix it well. Because what I want to have happen here is I want this sugar touching as much of the surface area of all these pieces of fruit as possible. And what's going to happen over the next few hours, because I'm not going to be cooking this right away, is the last step for today. What's going to be happening for the next few hours is whatever juice that's left in this fruit after 2 years and a month of sitting on the shelf, well, it's going to be drawn out by the sugar. And so you saw I didn't put any water in here. There was just the fruit. So I'm just mixing sugar into the fruit. If there's still seeds in there, I don't feel like taking them out right now because I don't feel like getting everything full of this sugar. When the liquid starts to come through, then the seeds will float. I'll be able to get them out. Mix it well. I don't want any sugar sitting in the bottom. I want it all stuck to the sides of the fruit. So I'm not doing anything with the grape juice today. All I'm doing is that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a plate on top of this, cover it up, and I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours. Or I could let it sit for 48 hours if I want. You'll see what's going to happen with this fruit. And so I've got half a liter of grape juice here that's going to be multiplied by this watermelon, because the flavor of this grape juice is going to fill this watermelon and it's going to make a wonderful jam like you saw here. I'm not putting in this grape juice yet. And so now this is just going to stay here. I've mixed the sugar well. The sugar's covering all the fruit. And it's going to stay there for 24 hours. And then the next step is going to be tomorrow. Just put a plate on top and let it sit there for 24 hours. After not even 15 minutes, you can see the water coming out of the fruit. And there's going to be even more over the next 24 hours. This is 2 hours later. You can see the syrup forming, and you can see some of the seeds floating. That will be easy to get out now. Just after about 8 hours. I didn't add any water. It's just the water that came out of the citron melon because of the sugar. Today it's 2 days later, and so you're going to see what's going on with our jam watermelon recipe. Here are the seeds I collected. They're all nice and dry now. And then here is the fruit. I'm going to show you a better close-up in a minute. Now, I see a few seeds floating in there, so I'm going to want to take them out. Got a spoon here. I'm just finishing up looking for the seeds. There were just a few left, but these seeds are quite hard. I could leave them in there. I left them in there for that other batch I showed you when I was filming the day before yesterday, but I didn't quite like the texture as much. Apparently, in the 19th century, in North America, citron melon were a very popular fruit to grow in orange groves. So they would grow oranges, they'd have an orange grove, an orange orchard, and they would have citron melon plants growing all over the place in that orchard. And why is that? It's because they go so well together. A couple of years ago, I made that jam, or with using oranges and fresh citron melon, like the green citron melon. It was really good. Oh, it was so good. It was probably the best flavor of them all. I might do that recipe for you. So here's a piece of citron melon with the syrup. I'm gonna taste it. Very nice. And over the last 2 days, but most of this happened in the first probably 12 hours, all this water came out. Now I'm gonna put all this fruit and syrup into the blender. It's probably not all gonna fit in one go, but that's fine. Then I'm gonna put it in my pot, and then I'm gonna add grape juice from the grapes in our orchard. There we are, there we have it. Start on low. There we go, all blended. Looks a little bit like beginnings of apple cider. And now the next thing is our grape juice. We harvested this in August, I think it was. Canned it. There we go. All right, pour the grape juice in. Now the only thing left to do is to simmer this down. Bring this to a boil. Take a couple minutes, bring it to a boil, and then reduce the temperature and just let it simmer for an hour. That's today. And after that, maybe it'll be ready. Last time it was ready after that process. In fact, I think it only took half an hour. Off to the stove. Now we're just gonna get this going. So it's almost boiling. Once it's boiling, I'm just gonna reduce it to simmer. Between 15 minutes and 45 minutes to an hour maybe. It just depends. Depends on how thick it gets, how quickly. Some people like to take all this stuff off. They have a not very pretty word for it, but to me it's like cream, and I like to mix it right back into the jam. It gives it a kind of like a bubbly texture. There we go. It's boiling. All right, and I don't want it to boil any stronger than that. And that was really fast. That only took about 5 minutes to get to that point. And so now I'm going to reduce the heat to minimum so that I can just maintain this simmer. Make sure that while it's bubbling this much that I come and mix it every minute or two. I don't want it burning. It's already looking like jam, which without the citron melon, it would take at least an hour to look this way. So here it is. It's been simmering like this for 15 minutes. Look at that nice color that it's become. So what this is gonna give is a nice thick grape flavored jam with a hint of watermelon flavor in there. And then with all the goodness of the watermelon and the grape together. It's starting to thicken. You see that? Look at that. It's starting to thicken. It's starting to move my spoon through it, and it kind of holds its position a little bit. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take some of this, a little bit, mostly try and get some of the juice there, put a little bit into a little bowl, and I'm gonna put this in the fridge for a few minutes, see how it congeals. Already it's looking like a jam. This was even faster than the quince, I think. 2-year-old jam watermelon, or citron watermelon, or what I like to call winter watermelon, because it lasts so long, just like a winter squash. Depending on how it comes out of the fridge in a few minutes, I may turn this off and it may be ready. I don't feel like canning it right now. I got stuff to do outside, so I may just bring it back to a boil later today or maybe tomorrow and can it up. We're at 25 minutes now. So I brought this back from the fridge, and as far as I'm concerned, this is thick enough for me. And it's already simmered 5 minutes longer. I'm gonna taste it. It's just right. So I'm just gonna let this sit. I'm gonna bring it to a boil later and jar it up. We're a couple days later, a few days, maybe probably 3 days later. The jam's been sitting in the fridge for the last 3 days because I was just been really busy. I was initially planning on boiling it again in order to be able to can it, but when I looked at it this morning, I saw that it was so thick that we decided that we would just stick it in these jars, that we're reusing. And because we're not canning it, we'll just stick these jars in the freezer. It's not a big batch anyway. It's not really worth canning. So as you can see, it's very thick. And that's because of these citron melons, or these jam watermelons. Very, very thick. And as you saw, it was really very little cooking. You saw all the cooking process. I didn't do any more cooking after the last part of the video that you saw. So let's taste it. It's delicious. Obviously, it was that one small half a liter of grape juice and a citron melon that was between this size and this size. And this is the amount of jam that it gave, and nothing else except some sugar. So there you go. Citron melon. It's great for making jams. Now, when it's green, it's a bit of a different process because it's a lot juicier. But maybe I'll do another video about that later. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful. That you learned something. If you enjoyed the video, then please share it with your friends. And if you haven't done so yet, and subscribe. Support our channel just by subscribing. Have a great week. Have a happy Halloween. And we will see you next time.